Okay, welcome back to the Memorial University Engineering Graphics Lab. Today we'll be looking at creating a simple assembly using two models. We'll be generating an assembly drawing from the assembly itself. With regards to learning outcomes, we want to look at best practices, always using the origin. We're going to look at how we orient components, different mate types such as face mates, edge mates, vertex mates, and mate alignment, what that means. We'll be editing our mates and examining the difference between fixed for a model and float. And then, of course, we'll be looking at the file properties of the assembly drawing of the assembly itself and editing those file properties in the correct fields so we can generate the text inside of our title block inside the assembly drawing. We'll be creating different views inside of our assembly drawing using dimensions and scale, and always cross-checking our drawing. So let's get started. You'll notice that when I browse open documents, I already have two models open, and those are the two parts I'll be putting together, and I've already got the assembly drawing done. Well, we're going to be starting at the beginning, but I wanted to introduce to you what we're going to be creating, which is mates. And when I mouse over top of the mates after I've expanded the folder, mousing over top, I can see there's something like a red edge appearing on my screen. So there's an edge mate, there's a face mate, and finally another face mate. And I can edit these later on. We'll look at that. For now, be aware that I'm going to be creating different types of mates. When I say File New, what I want to be using are the 1030 templates, and I'm going to ask for a metric assembly. Now, because I have my two parts open already, I can see them in the assembly manager. I'm going to pin this assembly manager in place and bring in the housing base to start with. I'm also going to make sure I have a preview here, a graphics preview, and there I can see on the end of my cursor is the first part that I want to bring in. Best practice tells me to drop that on the origin, so I need to make sure I can see the origin, and you may have to look for your origin if it's not visible. Once I drop that in place, I'm going to then select Housing Cover To and roll out and drop the cover down next to that. Now I could add multiples here if I wanted to drop those down. In this case I don't. I'm going to hit the green check mark, and if I don't need those multiples, I'll just delete those. Again, I said you may have to look for View Origin, and as long as you have the origin turned off, which it is in the templates, our origins should be visible. Now I said we're going to explore different types of mates, so what I want to do is bring to your attention that under Mates I have in SolidWorks different types of mates, and SolidWorks is smart. It will pre-select a mate for you, and then you can decide if you like that selection. Let's be aware that I can select my different views still in here, front, right side, and so on, and top view. I'll go back to the old isometric view. I can move my part around. This one I brought in first and dropped down on the origins. So in learning outcomes, we talked about fixed versus float. This component is clearly floating around, and I have a little minus sign next to that. So that is floating around. This one is fixed. That's the first one I brought in, and the F in the parenthesis is denoting fixed. If I wanted to fix or float anything, I could simply right-click while I'm on the component and look to fix that. Right-click, I can float this component. Our first component we bring in, we drop on the origin, we leave that fixed, and we build around a fixed component. And that will become clearer later why we do that. Simply what we want to do is have something fixed in space so parts aren't moving around. The little red-green light over here is telling us to rebuild, so once you change something you can rebuild and you might see your changes. Now what we said was we're going to create some mates, and I can either open mate up, or I can, let's say, select a line and open mate up. And there is the line or the edge that I've selected. When I pre-select the edge and open mate, I can see that in my property manager. The next thing I'm going to do is select a second edge, and both edges appear now, and SolidWorks has moved this part into place, and it is offering me a coincident mate, which I'm happy with. If I wanted to change that, I could at this point. When I hit the green check mark and I expand my mates folder, there's the mate, those two edges. Now you'll be asking yourself, how do I know this is mated since I can move this part around? You can see it's actually swinging along the edge that we pre-selected, those two edges. And how we know it's mated, if I select the front view, it's actually sliding along that edge. If I select the right view, we can see it's clearly swinging on the edge there, and that's an okay way to start. I also like to work with faces instead of edges, but for now let's leave it at that. You'll notice that once I start moving this around, I can make a lot of work for myself. Generally, I don't want to move the parts around too much. Also, if I've created a mate that I'm not happy with, I can simply pick here and delete the mate, and then my mate is no longer active. Another thing is if I move my parts around too much, if I right click on the mouse, clearly I can do some nice moving here, but that makes it very confusing to me when I am assembling. So generally I would, if I did a lot of moving of that part and I'm confused, I would delete that mate, and then I would insert components again and bring that housing base cover tube or housing cover tube back, drop that down, and it's oriented for me already, so I like that instead of playing around with the parts too much. So going back to mate, I'm going to select an edge and an edge, and there they are, and hit the green check mark. Another thing I want to do is mate using faces, so again I can open up the mate tool, pick a face, pick a top face, there they are, and SolidWorks again is suggesting coincident. If I pick mate alignment, you'll notice what it's doing is simply turning the part upside down. So I'm going to leave it as it was and hit the green check mark. So again, let's play around with this now. Just move this around and you can see we're sliding on that edge, and we also have these two faces mated now. So if I ask for, you can see we're sliding on that edge, a right view, and I can't move this at all. And let's go for a top view, and again sliding on the edge, but these two faces are at the same height. There we go. And then back to isometric. The final thing I want to do to fully constrain the second part, housing cover 2, is I want to select this face, again ask for mate, you can do this forwards or backwards, there's the face, select the second face, green check mark, and there it is, and it's fully constrained. You'll notice the minus sign is no longer visible, and that means that that part is fixed in place, and that's a good sign. Let's look at creating now a model. So if I save this, file, save as, I'm going to call this assembly, let's call this assembly 2 for now. And then what I want to do is create a drawing. So with that done, I'm going to make sure before I start my drawing that File, Properties, the fields are already entered. So under Project would be our title, or sorry, under Project would be the name of our lab, Engineering Graphics 1030. Item 2 under Description is the name of the part, so the title of the part, Housing Assembly 2, the part number, your initials, and the date. We don't edit the material here, we don't change the weight, we just edit those fields, and I'm going to open up an assembly that I've already created, and File, Properties, they're already edited there for me, so Project, Description, Part Number, my initials, and the date. Now that I've edited those, I can go into File, New, and what I want to do is ask for an assembly. I'm not a metric assembly, now I'm creating a metric drawing. So a metric drawing, and when I bring my views in under View Layout, if I ask for Standard 3 View, and that was the name of my assembly I created with the edited fields, green check mark, and or actually there we have it, the proof is in the pudding. There I have something that wasn't edited, so let me delete those. It's good to realize that if you haven't edited, you're going to end up with text which isn't correct. So let me file, I'm going to create my new views under View Layout, Standard 3 Views. Let's try that one. And you'll notice when I bring the views in, the text has changed for me. So that's a good bit of learning there. And my text is a little bit big, so right click, Edit Sheet Format, double click on the text. I'm going to change that to 16. Right click to get out of the editor, Edit Sheet. Now in here what I want to do is position my views, and I can drag those and place them in the right position. I'll check the scale on the assignment, which is a half scale, which is what we've already got here. If I click the views, I can see that in the grayed out area I'm automatically using a half. Now my display style is what's important to me. I want to pick this one and ask for hidden lines. Same thing here, hidden lines. And you can pre-select that before you bring your views in. I would like to ask for a model view, and what I want to do is make sure I'm working in the correct assembly. Okay, and once I hit the blue arrow, I want to ask for an isometric view and place that down and ask for shaded with edges. There's a center line here. I'm going to delete that center line. And then finally, I need to project a view because the assignment is showing a projected view of the back face of the part. So when I pick this view under projected view and view layout, I can drop down the back edge of the part. And then finally what I need to do is insert my dimensions, adjust my dimensions so they're shown in the correct orientation, edit your name, put your name, student number, and section number in, and save all your work in H. Make sure that you have double checked all of your dimensions and circled the appropriate dimensions so you've used all the information, and again that you've added your name, student number, and section. And that is the overview for a simple assembly and a simple assembly drawing. Thanks for watching.